Well, we can speak now to the leader of the Green Party of England and Wales, Zack Polanski, who, as we've seen, has been addressing his party's annual conference in Bournemouth. He's Jewish and he grew up in North Manchester. Zack Polanski, welcome to the programme. Because of where you grew up and your faith, I mean, you must have been particularly affected by these horrific events yesterday. So in the light of that, I wonder what you made of the Israeli government's response last night, that this was directly down to the British government not protecting Jews from anti-Semitism and also linking it to the recognition of the Palestinian state.
I thought it was a vile and deeply irresponsible response. Let's go back to first principles here. A terrorist attack happened on our soil. As a Jewish man, I feel that very deeply. But you don't have to be Jewish to know that people being killed outside a synagogue, a place that should be a place of faith, a place of peace, this vile attack happened. That's one thing that's going on. It is completely morally consistent to also condemn a genocide. The equivalent of a classroom of children every single day on average are being killed and slaughtered. And our British government are not just complicit, they are active participants in selling arms to Israel and sharing intelligence. Right. The only coherent response here is to condemn both the terrorist act that happened in the UK and to say it is time to stop selling arms to Israel. Okay,
what about the Jewish protesters at the vigil in Manchester who were heckling the Deputy Prime Minister David Lammy? What would you say to them?
I'd say that I understand why people are incredibly upset. And actually the antidote to terrorism is not to crush down on dissent. It's not to stop people expressing their view to politicians. Of course, there's nuance in this. I'd always encourage people to be sensitive, thoughtful, and balanced. But really, when we look at that balance, are we not more worried about the bombs, the weapons, the unnecessary destruction, the massacre, than we are about politicians being held to account in a way that might not be perfect, but ultimately you can understand why tensions are running high.
And the Home Secretary, as well as leaders of the British Jewish community, have called on Defend Our Juries to stop their marches this weekend in favour of Palestine, in favour of Palestine Action. Do you think they should stop those demonstrations out of respect to the Jewish community in Manchester, for instance, your community?
Well, I take anti-Semitism really seriously. I'm one of only 5 people in the last 100 years in British politics to lead a political party. So this is both personal and it's political. In the same breath, I have walked in nearly every single pro-Palestine march that I can do. And when I have walked, I've often walked with the Jewish bloc. A group like Namod, who are a group of British Jews speaking out against the occupation and saying not in our name. Again, the antidote to terrorism is democracy. It's our British values. It's people being able to walk in the streets in a non-violent way to voice dissent against our British government's complicity, active participants in genocide. So no, I don't call on anyone to stop protesting or to stop marching. I do call on people this weekend and every weekend to always think about how can we communicate better, how can we communicate with more nuance, but ultimately the proportionality here lies with the British government and all governments that are complicit in this genocide.
Zack Polanski at the Green Party conference in Bournemouth, thank you very much indeed. And let's get back to Jackie in Manchester. Jackie.
After the break, we hear from the UK's chief rabbi on why he thinks the government should crack down on pro-Palestinian marches because of anti-Semitic elements within them. Welcome back to Manchester, where the families of 2 men killed in the synagogue attack have been paying tribute to them. Melvin Kravitz's family remember him as a kind, caring person who would do anything to help anyone. Adrian Dalby, who was accidentally hit by a police bullet, was described as a hero who died trying to protect worshippers. There has also been anger today. The Deputy Prime Minister David Lammy was heckled at a vigil for the victims. And earlier today, before that vigil, I spoke to the UK's chief rabbi, Sir Ephraim Mirvis, and I asked him what survivors of the attack and bereaved relatives had been telling him.
The Heaton Park members, what a wonderful community it is. I know them so well. They're extraordinary people. They went through a very traumatic experience. And indeed, the British Jewish community is going through a very dark period right now. I and my wife arrived in Manchester early this morning, and we have been so moved and so inspired by the injured whom we have visited in hospital, by members of this congregation, a few hundred of them who pitched up in order to engage with me, many wonderful people. But what inspired me most of all is, you know, a terrorist is called by that term because that person wants to instill terror into the hearts and minds of people. That hasn't happened.
But there will be fear, though, more fear.
Yes, that is correct, nervousness and fear. But this community is not going to be cowed.
You will know that there are many people in this country who feel, including many Jewish people, who feel very strongly about what they see coming out of Gaza. They're desperate for an end to the war. Many of them feel the protests and the marches are the way that they must express that view to the politicians, to government. Can we allow that and protect the Jewish community at the same time?
So ever since the 7th of October and what originally were weekly protest demonstrations on Saturdays, we have seen some totally unacceptable sights on the streets of our cities. And look at what it has led to. And there are many people in the Jewish community and well beyond who have questioned why have such protests, which are outrightly in some respects anti-Semitic, why have they been allowed to take place at all? And
even though there are many people at the protests who would say, I'm not anti-Semitic, I'm just upset about...
I said, that's exactly what I said, right? Where there are elements of anti-Semitism absolutely there. People are entitled to their views. But ultimately, when there are chants such as globalize the Intifada, we see what that means.
So the government must do more, you think? You would like to see the government
Definitely
ban the protests?
I would like to see the government ensuring that the legal framework in Britain enables our police forces to do what they can in order to get on top of the situation.
Chief Rabbi, thank you very much for talking to me.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, our communities editor, Darshna Soni, is with me now. Darshna.
Well, it's been another difficult day here today, Jackie. We've had very moving tributes to the victims of the synagogue attack. We've had people paying tribute to the bravery of those who prevented further injury. And we've also had new details about the attacker, because although reporters were originally told that he wasn't on the radar of the security services, what we learnt today was that he was known to the police. In fact, when he carried out that murderous assault, he was on bail for an alleged rape. There has also been wider questions about the state of debate in Britain today. These have been very tumultuous times. We've seen very divisive protests, and there have been international concerns about international issues and worries that that is spilling onto the streets of Britain. The Met Police asked for a protest tomorrow to be cancelled in London. Here today in Manchester, there was supposed to have been a pro-Palestinian march. That was cancelled here. The organisers said they decided at this time not to go ahead with it. There have been a lot of talk here about calls for the rhetoric to be toned down. On the attacker, for example, there has been lots of commentary on social media about his immigration status. People have been linking this story to the asylum debate, which has been very heated here. In fact, it's understood that Jihad al-Shami's family came here legally. His father was working as a doctor, and then he legally brought his family over, and that the attacker then became a British citizen. Many people here have pointed out that we need to tone this rhetoric down, because that is what is fueling hate. And as we have seen here, very sadly, it's that hate that needs to be combated. And we all have a responsibility, a role to play in that.
Darshna, our communities editor, thank you so much. Well, that is all we have time for this evening. We are back at 7 o'clock tomorrow night. Until then, that's Channel 4 News. Good evening.